Welcome, focused learners, to today's explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here. Think of me as your scientific mentor today, because we are going to fundamentally shift how you view building a business. You know that romanticized image of the visionary genius locking themselves in a room for months only to emerge with a flawless product? Yeah, we need to completely forget about that. Sustainable success requires treating your startup like a scientific pursuit. We're going to look at building a business as running a rigorously controlled science experiment. So grab your lab coats and let's get into it. Let's kick things off by throwing some ice-cold water on a pretty common myth with a staggering fact. 90%. According to statistics compiled by Review 42 and supported by research from the Harvard Business School showing 75% of venture-backed startups completely crashing and burning, 90% of all new startups fail. Now, why is that? It's usually not because they lack passion or even funding. It's actually primarily because they build things the market doesn't actually need. They spend years developing a perfect solution for a problem that, well, simply doesn't exist. Today, we're going to learn exactly how to make sure you land in that successful 10%. Here is our lab protocol for today's explainer. First, why most startups fail. Second, the business hypothesis. Third, the build, measure, learn cycle. Fourth, the simple prototype test. And finally, the power of pivoting. Let's dive in. Section 1. Why most startups fail. Diagnosing the disease. If we know that 90% of startups are failing, we really need to diagnose the disease before we can apply the cure, right? And that disease is almost always a fatal mismatch between what a company is offering and what consumers actually want to buy. You can see this stark contrast when you compare the old way of doing things to the smart way. In the traditional model, founders write up this rigid 5-year business plan, raise a bunch of money, and build their product in stealth mode. They hide from the market because they're terrified of competitors, but honestly, they're mostly terrified of failure. And by the time they finally launch, the market has already moved on, or worse, they never cared to begin with. But the lean startup model, it flips this entirely. It's built entirely on proof of concept. It relies on immediate customer feedback, and instead of running from failure, it actively embraces productive failure to find a truly scalable model. I absolutely love this quote pulled directly from a highly successful $0 startup founder on the Reddit entrepreneur community. They wrote, "Stop looking for business opportunities and start looking for problems." I mean, that is profound. Money follows value, and value is created by solving real problems. Just like this user pointed out, your most valuable asset isn't a massive pile of venture capital. It's the skills you already possess to solve specific problems for actual people. You aren't just building a business, you are engineering a solution. Section 2, the business hypothesis. Let's talk about your untested idea. As your mentor today, I need you to do something kind of difficult. Completely abandon the idea that your brilliant business concept is a proven fact. Because, well, it's not. It is merely an untested hypothesis waiting to be proven right, or, let's be honest, more likely proven wrong. To test this hypothesis, we're going to replace that traditional bloated business plan with what is known as the lean canvas. This is a brilliant framework where literally every part of your business is regarded as a series of hypotheses that you have to test to prevent wasting time and money. And because we are operating like a laboratory now, our metrics for success have to change. We aren't looking at traditional balance sheets at this stage. No, we're measuring things like the cost of customer acquisition, the lifetime value of a customer, and actual qualitative feedback from real people. So you're probably wondering, how do we actually test these hypotheses without burning through all our cash? Simple. We use zero-cost testing methods. The sources we analyzed highlight some amazing ways to do this today. You can test market demand by freelancing your existing skills on platforms like Fiverr or Upwork. You could create digital products, templates or ebooks using totally free tools like Canva. You can test micro niches with print-on-demand merchandise where you literally carry zero inventory. You can even launch drop servicing businesses or an AI automation agency using free platforms just to see if businesses will actually pay for your solution before you spend a single dime on infrastructure. Moving on to Section 3, the build, measure, learn cycle, the core engine of everything we're doing. Once you have your zero-cost test ready to go, we enter this continuous scientific cycle. The lean startup methodology relies heavily on a concept called customer development, or as it's often called in the industry, getting outside the building. Listen, your best ideas and your absolute most crucial data points, they do not come from the silo of a boardroom. They come from the wild. They come from real people interacting with your product in the real world. You build a test, you measure the results with actual users, you learn from their feedback, and you feed all of that right back into your next build. So, the crucial takeaway here is this. You must work smarter, not harder, by eliminating uncertainty. Every single time you run through that build, measure, learn cycle, you are making calculated, small adjustments based on raw, real-world data. You are proving, piece by piece, that your idea will succeed before you fully commit your life savings or, frankly, years of your life to it. Section 4. The simple prototype test. Time to build our lab equipment. How exactly do we build the lab equipment for this experiment using the absolute bare minimum resources possible? We do it by creating an MVP, or minimum viable product. Now let's be clear. An MVP is not your dream product. It is a working prototype used strictly to immediately elicit real-time customer feedback. It is the ultimate tool for a zero-cost proof of concept. Building an MVP is what saves founders from spending months, or sometimes even years, perfecting a product that the market ultimately rejects. It's literally just the simplest thing you can show a customer to get them to pull out their wallet or give you their time. Let's walk through the exact steps of this process, which is known as validated learning. First, you identify a problem that desperately needs solving. Second, you develop a conceptual product that accomplishes that goal. Third, you create that minimum viable product, the absolute cheapest, fastest version of your solution. Fourth, and this is the absolute most critical part, you test it with real potential customers to see if they actually want it. And finally, step 5, you use their feedback to fine-tune the product and repeat the cycle all over again. By doing this, you are making real-world financial decisions based on validated learning, not just guesswork. If you want to know what a world-class MVP looks like, look no further than Dropbox. We all know Dropbox is a massive company today, but their MVP? It wasn't a fully functional, highly coded software suite, no way. It was just a simple 3-minute video screencast showing consumers how the service would hypothetically work. That's it, just a video. But that video captured an initial audience, and the founders relentlessly collected real-time user feedback right there in the comment section. They used that exact feedback to shape the actual coding of the product. The result? By validating their learnings super early, they grew from 100,000 registered users to over 4 million in just 15 months. Finally, Section 5, the power of pivoting. Let's reframe how we look at failure. In our Lean Startup Lab, failure is definitely not a dirty word. In fact, it's pretty much essential. My philosophy for you is incredibly simple. Fail fast and fail cheap. Failure is a completely natural, productive consequence of taking risks in a scientific method. If an organization avoids failure at all costs, their process is simply way too conservative. You want to fail quickly and cheaply because it saves your precious resources, it stops you from going bankrupt on the wrong idea, and it points you directly toward what actually does work.
And when you inevitably do fail, that is exactly when you execute a pivot. A pivot is a major innovation or rethinking of your business model when your real-time customer feedback proves your current concept is flawed. As a founder, you have got to know when to cut your losses. You cannot throw good money or time after a bad idea just because you love it. If you truly want to innovate, you have to leave your ego at the door, look at the cold, hard data, and let the market dictate the final product.
So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a rather provocative question to really challenge your mindset. Are you genuinely willing to let the market prove your brilliant hypothesis wrong? Because if you are, if you can actually embrace the build, measure, learn cycle, test your MVP, gather that real-time feedback, and pivot without ego, you won't just be starting a business. You'll be engineering a scalable, sustainable success. Thank you so much for joining